How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. So talk about the perfect Christmas weekend for us. There had to be a lot of presents that we were hoping to have, and somehow we got every single one on our list, and plus one additional one that I've actually never thought of till the game. So coming into the weekend, we were rooting for four teams, and that was the Carolina Panthers over the Detroit Lions, the 49ers over the Washington Commanders, the Vikings, unfortunately, against the Giants, and then the Kansas City Chiefs over the Seattle Seahawks. Many of those games look pretty attainable in the teams we were rooting for. Like, we figured the Giants would lose to the Vikings, even though that game got really close towards the end and depended on a 61 game-winning field goal by the Vikings. We figured the Chiefs would beat the Seahawks. We figured the 49ers would beat the Commanders, especially since the 49ers are looking very well and the Commanders have been slumping as of late. But the Lions losing to the Panthers was a bit of an iffy one. This is definitely a different Panthers team after the firing of their head coach. But I did not expect, especially early on in the game, for the Panthers to be so far ahead of the Lions. So for all four teams that we were rooting for to actually win their games on Christmas Eve, then the follow-up on Christmas, and this game looked very, very shaky and a little bit nerve-wracking in the beginning, especially during like the second drive of the Dolphins where Jalen Waddle just went off for like a 74-yard touchdown. It looked a bit scary, but the Packers somehow held on, figured it out in the second half, and clamped down on defense for us to pretty much kind of be gifted this win, because Tua did not have a good game at all in the second half. And so with the victory of 26-20 over the Miami Dolphins, I realized there was one other gift that I didn't even anticipate, and that was the Dallas Cowboys beating the Eagles. Now, the reason this is kind of important is because we now have to just win out and hope for the Commanders to lose one game or the Giants to play and lose two games. And with the Cowboys defeating the Eagles, it made the Cowboys 12-4 and the Eagles 13-2. And the reason this kind of plays a huge part is depending on what happens next week, because it sounds like Jalen Hurts could be out for another week. If the Eagles lose next week and the Cowboys win, that'll put the Cowboys at 13-4 and the Eagles at 13-3. And that means both teams will have something to play for in week 17, which is why this makes a difference. And that's because the Eagles will be playing the Giants. And we need the Giants, if the Commanders don't lose one of their next two games, we need the Giants to lose both of their games, which means they need to lose to the Eagles. So with the Eagles having something to play for potentially in week 17 helps us. Then on the Cowboys side, let's say the Commanders do win next week. Well, that means we need the Cowboys to defeat the Commanders in week 17. So the fact that the Cowboys beat the Eagles means they are still fighting to win that division. Because if the Cowboys win out and the Eagles lose out, the Cowboys have the tiebreaker of the Eagles, which gives them something to play in week 17. And that could play a part in our potential playoff hopes. Now, of course, the Packers do have to win out still, but we still need a little bit of help. The easiest, Commanders lose one of their next two games, or the Giants lose both of their next games. So that Cowboys and Eagles game actually played a part, and that added to our Christmas gift. Something on the list I didn't even expect, and it wasn't really talked about. I didn't remember hearing it once, but once I saw that there is a tiebreaker scenario and that gives the Cowboys and Eagles something to play, that played a part in what was pretty much the perfect Christmas weekend for us. Now, looking back at the game, yes, the Green Bay Packers came with a 26-20 victory over the Dolphins. Did they win it? In a way, yes. But the Dolphins definitely lost that game. Because in the first half, I'm still not really understanding this. The Dolphins were running over us, and they did not continue to run the ball. At the end of the game stats, Raheem Mostert, who we have nightmares from him with the 49ers. Granted, he is on a different team. Still, Raheem Mostert, 8 carries for 45 yards and a 5.6 yard average. And Jeff Wilson with an additional 9 carries for 37 yards and 4.1 yard average. They were averaging over 4 yards a carry, and they did not run the ball against us. Granted, they do have two really fast and really, really good receivers, but we are very vulnerable to the run. And they had success, and they decided to not keep running the ball, which I don't really understand. It's a very simple philosophy in a way, especially in the second half when Tua was obviously struggling. He threw his first pick that looked like a bad pick. Second one was a bad pick. Tua essentially gifted us this game with his 3 turnovers because they were some ugly turnovers. He threw it right to our defenders. And you know what? I'm going to take it. Thank you for the Christmas gift. Love it. Then over on our offensive side of the ball, we did throw the ball a lot more in this game. And granted, we were behind, especially since many of us felt we were going to have to keep up with the Dolphins and their high firepower. Aaron Rodgers, 24 for 38, 238 yards, a touchdown, and an ugly pick. But despite the ugly pick, he was kind of efficient. He had some throws where it was just like, wow, that is vintage Aaron Rodgers, especially when he threw a dime to Mercedes Lewis on the side. But then there were some bad throws where he just missed a wide open Christian Watson or a Lazard. So he hasn't himself been consistent, and that kind of hurts us. But luckily, we were still able to make enough plays to win this game. On to the running side, A.J. Dillon, 11 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown with a 3.3 yard average. And Aaron Jones, 6 carries for 25 yards and a 4.2 yard average. Now, the Aaron Jones, it was a little frustrating to see and wonder why he wasn't running. But later on, we found out that he actually did have an injury, and they were taping him up, trying to get him back into the game. So there were a few drives where we were really wondering, like, where's Aaron Jones, and why are we not running the ball with Aaron Jones? Especially since he's, I don't even think it's arguably our best player. I mean, it might be now, especially with how Christian Watson's been playing, but Aaron Jones has been the most consistent player on our squad. So yeah, the offense for us, we didn't have a great offensive performance, especially to put up 26 points, but they did enough so we could stay in the game, and our defense and special teams helped that tremendously, especially with Keyshawn Nixon on his first kickoff return, returning it for 94 yards, setting us in the red zone off the rip, which was awesome. Unfortunately, Keyshawn Nixon did get hurt on the second return, I believe, and he was out for the rest of the game with a groin injury. Hopefully it's not severe and we have him back next week, because when Romeo Doubs came in, and he didn't do anything special, he didn't mess up, he caught the ball, and nothing big, but the return game was definitely different without Keyshawn Nixon, and he is definitely a difference maker for us. And it's kind of frustrating considering he's been on the squad this entire year, and we were rolling out Amari Rodgers for most of the year, and then look who we have behind us. But I guess hindsight's kind of 2020, so whatever. We now know Keyshawn Nixon is a stud for us in the kick return, so at least we got there, I guess. And hopefully he'll be good for us next week and good to go. Then lastly, if you look at just the team stats, pretty much how the Dolphins did against the Packers, if you were just to look at these stats, you would probably think the Dolphins won, and I couldn't blame you. Total yards, Miami, 376 total yards to Green Bay's 301. Passing yards, 294 to Green Bay's 222. Rushing yards, Miami has 82 to our 79, so they've beaten us in yards, period. Average yards per play, 8 yards a play to Green Bay's 5. But then you start looking at the defensive side, and this is where, especially in the second half, and that's where this game came down to, the second half, where it allowed us to win. I don't know if Joe Barry actually did adjustments. It seemed like he actually made some adjustments, and I still can't believe it because Joe Barry doesn't seem to adjust to anything. But Joe Barry did something, and in the second half, our defense clamped down, and we allowed 0 points in that second half. As you can see, Miami did lose a fumble, while Green Bay did not. That was at the end of the first half, but that still allowed us to go score some points at the end of the first half. Then the interceptions thrown. Miami's 3 to Green Bay's 1, and all 3 of those picks were in the fourth quarter. They came and got those picks when needed, even if they were gifted to us. And then, so at the end of the day, the Packers win and the Dolphins lose, and that's kind of what matters. Was it a great win? Yes. Was it a pretty win? Kind of. Depends on how you look at it. Offense? Defense? Second half? Yes. Do we need to fix up some things and improve a lot if we're going to try to make a true push in the playoffs? Yes. I still think our defense is a little bit suspect. Did they show some grit and some adjustments in the fourth quarter and the second half? Yes. Because to shut that kind of team down and that type of firepower to 0 points and to get 3 turnovers, is very impressive. And that is a very good Dolphins team. And another thing I was actually very shocked for with our team, and I don't know if it was because of how important this game was and the fact we probably felt like we needed to keep up scoring with them, is how aggressive we were, like severely aggressive. And for the most part, it kind of paid off. Like we were 3 for 5 on 4th down, which is a good conversion rate. But we also, on about our 35 yard line, went for a fake punt on 4th and 2 that got stuffed. It looked terrible. I couldn't believe how aggressive we were being, but it was nice. But then later on in the game, when we're up 3 and it's 4th and 3, we kicked a field goal. Like, I understand the points, but a field goal ties the game. So it's kind of a hard call, especially with how aggressive we were the entire game for the most part, and to just settle for 3. But I'm fine with it. I kind of understood. Take the points. You're up 6. They need to score a touchdown to win the game. That's cool with that. And so us Packers fans get to celebrate Christmas with a stressful but great win against Miami Dolphins, running the table again for another year. And we wouldn't think about that a month ago. It's insane how much this team has kind of turned around. Do we need improvements? Yes, but I'm going to take this win. It's a great win. Figure the rest out. Hopefully our players, they're not severely injured, and try to play and show up against the Vikings next week. We are opening up as 3.5 point favorites against the Vikings, and it is a home game. Luckily, the last 2 games, yes, they are against NFC North, the opponents, the Vikings coming up, and then the Lions. Both will be at home, so that is a huge plus. We have home field advantage essentially for the rest of the regular season. So hopefully we get these 2 wins and sneak our way into the playoffs and do some damage, but we'll see. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like the video, hit the like button. And as always, go Pack Go.